Justin Trudeau has announced he's stepping down as the Prime Minister of Canada.
This is something that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. I didn't know it would happen. I know they've given kind of some hints here. And by the way, do you think Trump was the reason that Fidel Castro Jr. got the old boot from Canada, or he quit, got fired basically? I don't know. I mean, Trump probably had a lot to do with it, because this really started the downward spiral when he said that he could be the governor of the 51st state. And then he started talking about this 25% tariff on an already hurting Canada. And then remember the gal that was all about the lockdowns and, the medicines and all these things. I think her name was Freeland up there. And then she was all about like banning the truckers and freezing their accounts. And they're basically the Wicked Witch of the West. The World Economic Forum's Wicked Witch of the West. And, I think she would fit right into an Orwell novel. But this gal basically resigned, and then she wrote this letter, this resignation letter, ripping Justin Trudeau to shreds. And I think that's kind of what started this downward spiral for Fidel Castro Jr. up there, and what likely led. But was that a result of Trump? That might have been the straw that broke the camel's back, but I think it was more so about the economy. And so I want to focus on that side of the story, because most of you know that he quit. Okay, I'm not, you can look into the politics there, see who they have in the pipeline, and see if they're better or worse than Trudeau. I would hope they're better. I don't know how you get any worse, but we'll have to see what happens up there. But really, I don't know that this is about politics as much as it is about economics, right? Let me show you what I'm talking about. And by the way, we see this happening around the world, don't we? We see this populism. I mean, it starts with Malay. We go over to Trump. We see what's happening in France. We see what's happening in Italy. We see what's happening even in the UK right now. They're revolting against the socialists that they elected, 3 or 4 months ago? So we're seeing, since Trump got elected the second time, we're seeing a huge, huge shift. And quite frankly, I think it's a positive shift. Now, getting back to the economics involved, here is just the headline here. And again, most of you already know this, but Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Fidel Castro Jr., announces decision to step down. Key talking points: Trudeau has been battling waning popularity due to trade tariffs. But again, I think there's way more to it than that. Canada's latest political crisis was triggered by the abrupt departure of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. That was the Wicked Witch of the West during the whole cerveza sickness and with the truckers. I think she's one of Klaus's minions, if I'm not mistaken. She resigned in December, citing differences over Ottawa's response to prospective U.S. trade nationalism. I think that's just what's the saying? The rats are leaving the sinking ship. Or I think she just used that as an excuse to quit, so she didn't get caught up in his downward spiral of unpopularity. President-elect Donald Trump has teased the possibility of 25% tariffs. Okay, we know that. Now, and we're going to get into the economics in just a moment here, but I wanted to point out how unpopular he actually is right here. Trudeau, 53, who assumed office in 2015 and won re-election twice, suffered a plunge in voter popularity to just 19%. 19%. And again, I don't think that's strictly due to Trump calling him the governor of the 51st state, or Miss World Economic Forum quitting, or just the tariffs. I think it's more so to do with this. Unemployment rate rises to 6.8%. So they've been dealing with similar types of inflationary pressures, reducing purchasing power that we've seen in the United States. But unfortunately for them, their unemployment rate has gone up even more than we've seen in the United States. And in fact, if you look at this chart, not sure if I can zoom in, and yes, I can. Look at this upward slope. We were at 4.8 in 22, and then we've gone up to 6.8. That's an increase of 200 basis points, 2 percentage points. That's a big move in the unemployment rate. And just in 2024, we've seen it go up by 1 percentage point. So just in the last 12 months, it's gone from 5.7 to 6.8. That's a way to lose political popularity. One thing I want to mention before we move on is going back to, we're seeing this all around the world, and even right here in Colombia. You guys probably know from watching my videos or following the news that they elected a socialist here, a guy who was buddies with Chavez, just a real clown. That was back in 22 or something. And he is now just as unpopular as Trudeau. In fact, I think he, as in terms of his approval rating, I think he might have the lowest approval rating of any president in Colombian history. I mean, people hate him. Even the socialists here in Colombia hate him. So that's good news as well. Sorry, Petro, but you're the idiot. I just got to call a spade a spade. So when you look at the underlying economics, it becomes much clearer as to why the rats are fleeing the sinking ship and why Trudeau is probably handing in his resignation letter. You see the unemployment rate, and then you see, this is a biggie right here. You guys know that the Canadian economy was pretty much driven almost exclusively by the increase in housing prices. And look at what housing prices have done. Now, it is true, they're up since 2019, but when they hit their peak in 2020, they're down massively from their peak. So you see all of these people, they think, oh, I'm getting rich, I'm getting rich, I'm getting rich, and oh, I'm getting poor, I'm getting poor. And then, they're probably freaking out because, this recency bias goes both ways. And we talk about the recency bias in the S&P 500 and, all these risk-on assets where people assume that just because the stock market has gone up over the last 3 years, it'll go up for the next 30 years. It's just whatever has happened in the recent past, they just extrapolate that indefinitely into the future. But it works both ways, right? Housing prices have gone down there, let's say in the last 3 years. People are going to extrapolate that indefinitely into the future. And I know this extremely well because I remember when I got involved with real estate in 2012, and most of you know that I went pretty much all in real estate in the Midwest in 2012. Fortunately, it's complete luck, but fortunately, I timed the bottom almost to the month. And again, that was complete luck. Now, what wasn't luck is remember, that's the only thing that we can know definitively. Is it cheap or is it expensive? So to my credit, I recognized it was cheap and I went all in, right? I went all in when others were fearful, to use the Buffett quote. But back then, people were telling me I was crazy. I mean, that seems hard to even fathom now because real estate prices have gone up so much since then. But no, everyone was talking about how, oh, George, you're crazy buying real estate right now. Don't you know? Real estate prices always go down. That was the narrative back then. And for you younger people, you probably think I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about or that's completely insane. But for those of you who are a little older, you remember that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You remember 2011, 2012 like it was yesterday. And you remember that back then, people didn't want anything to do with real estate. Banks were giving away houses just to get them off their balance sheet because this was a toxic asset, right? So again, it's that recency bias going both ways. So if that recency bias is going the other way in Canada and your whole entire economy is basically propped up by housing prices, unemployment rate going from 5.7 to 6.8, people's purchasing power has gone down significantly over the last few years due to consumer price inflation and nominal wages not keeping up. What do you think is going to happen? That is a recipe for disaster if you are a politician. So I think that has a lot more to do with Trudeau handing in his resignation, has a lot more to do with it than just the 25% tariff or the wicked wit. Why can I not say that? Because we got so many W's. The wicked witch of the West or the wicked witch of the World Economic Forum. There we go. Just handing in her resignation and just telling Trudeau he's a dumbass, which is basically what she did, kind of giving him the finger as she left. That's really, in my view, the straw that broke the camel's back. This is much more of an economic story to me than it is a political story. And you have to ask yourself, if this is happening in Canada, who's next? Is it Australia? I mean, we're definitely seeing this play out in Europe, that's for sure. And could we see something like this play out in the United States? Now, maybe not with Trump handing in his resignation, but I'm more talking about the underlying economic conditions that we're seeing play out in Canada. Could that happen in 2025 in the US? Definitely a possibility. Hey guys, I'd like to personally invite each and every one of you to attend this year's Rebel Capitalist Live. This is the incredible conference I put on annually that helps you build a bulletproof portfolio. It helps you increase your personal freedom and liberty, and also it helps you increase the size of your network. In other words, you get to meet a lot of like-minded individuals, fellow rebel capitalists. It's in Orlando, May 23rd through the 25th. Past speakers have included people like Robert Kiyosaki, Ron Paul, Peter Schiff, Mike Maloney, Lynn Alden, just to name a few. So to get your tickets ASAP and to find out who is speaking at this year's Rebel Capitalist Live, you can check it out at rebelcapitalistlive.com. And just a little quick insider information, if you get your tickets sooner than later, you can get a discount, because as we get closer and closer to the event, the tickets go up in price. So don't wait. Go to rebelcapitalistlive.com right now and get your tickets, and I will see you in Orlando, May 23rd through the 25th.